What if the most dangerous moment isn't when someone finally breaks, but when the breaking has already begun and no one else sees it yet? That's the unsettling reality unfolding in General Hospital as Cassius begins slipping far earlier than anyone expected. The cracks are subtle, almost invisible, except to one person, Nathan. And the more Nathan watches, the clearer it becomes. Cassius isn't stable. He's already unraveling, and hiding it is getting harder by the second. General Hospital's Cassius is already slipping as Nathan notices, and it's getting harder to hide. In Port Charles, instability rarely arrives all at once. It doesn't explode immediately. It builds. Quietly. Invisibly. Until suddenly, what once looked controlled is anything but. Cassius is in that exact phase now, and the only person paying close enough attention to notice the early warning signs is Nathan. What makes this storyline so gripping is not just that Cassius is slipping, but that the slipping is happening under the surface while everyone else remains unaware. And Nathan? He's starting to realize he may be the only one seeing it in real time. Cassius. The appearance of control. To most people, Cassius still appears composed. Careful with words, measured in reactions, strategic in interactions. On the surface, nothing seems immediately wrong. But appearances in Port Charles are notoriously unreliable, because beneath Cassius's calm exterior, something is beginning to fracture. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. And that slow erosion is what makes it dangerous. The early signs no one else notices. Cassius doesn't fully collapse in a single moment. Instead, the changes are subtle. Slightly delayed responses in conversation. Emotional reactions that feel sharper than usual. Moments of hesitation that didn't exist before. A growing disconnect between intention and execution. To most people, these shifts are easy to miss, but Nathan is different. He notices patterns, and patterns don't lie. Nathan's perspective. The observer role. Nathan's position in this storyline is crucial. He isn't directly involved in Cassius's internal conflict. He isn't emotionally entangled in the same way others might be. He observes. And that distance gives him clarity. What he sees is not a single moment of instability, but a trajectory. And that trajectory is alarming, because it suggests Cassius isn't just reacting to stress. He's losing control of how he manages it. The first red flag. The first undeniable red flag doesn't come with drama. It comes with inconsistency. Cassius says one thing, but behaves slightly differently moments later. It's small, almost dismissible. But Nathan doesn't dismiss it. Because in his experience, small inconsistencies often become larger patterns. And once patterns form, they don't stay hidden for long. They escalate. The growing disconnect. As the days progress, the disconnect becomes clearer. Cassius begins to operate in a space where emotional responses feel slightly delayed or exaggerated. Strategic thinking seems interrupted by impulse. Social interactions carry an unusual tension. It's not full breakdown, but it is drift. And drift is often the earliest stage of collapse. Why Cassius is slipping, I was thrown there inside. The question isn't just that Cassius is slipping, it's why now. Something has changed internally. It could be pressure from external circumstances, emotional conflict, hidden stressors, or unresolved internal tension. The storyline intentionally leaves this ambiguous, because ambiguity heightens anxiety, and anxiety drives narrative tension. Nathan's concern deepens. At first, Nathan is cautious in his interpretation. He considers alternative explanations. Stress, fatigue, temporary distraction. But as the patterns repeat, those explanations become less convincing, and concern replaces doubt. Nathan begins to watch more closely, not out of suspicion, but out of necessity, because ignoring what he sees would be irresponsible. The danger of early slipping. What makes Cassius's situation so unsettling is that he hasn't fully broken yet. He's in the transitional phase, and that phase is unpredictable. Because, Domininen, He still has awareness. He still has intent. But he is losing stability. That combination creates volatility, and volatility is often more dangerous than complete breakdown. Cassius's attempt to hide it. One of the most compelling elements of this storyline is Cassius's effort to maintain control. He tries to mask the shifts, to correct behavior in real time, to compensate for lapses, but effort does not equal success. And Nathan notices the strain, because hiding instability requires energy, and that energy begins to show cracks of its own. Nathan's internal conflict. Nathan is now faced with a dilemma. Does he intervene, or does he continue observing? Because stepping in carries consequences. Misinterpretation of intent, potential escalation, social disruption. But doing nothing carries its own risk. Missing a critical turning point, allowing instability to worsen, being too late when action is finally needed. This internal conflict adds depth to his role, because observation alone is no longer neutral. It becomes responsibility. The subtle escalation. As Cassius continues slipping, the changes begin to accelerate slightly. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Moments of instability occur more frequently. Recovery becomes slower. Control feels less natural. And Nathan begins to realize something important. This is not stopping on its own. The fear beneath the surface. Cassius may not openly display fear, but it exists beneath the surface. Fear of exposure, fear of loss of control, fear of consequences, and that fear contributes to the instability. Because fear is rarely passive. It influences behavior, and in Cassius's case, it may be accelerating the very breakdown he is trying to prevent. Why Nathan is the only one noticing. The rest of Port Charles is not blind, but they are not observing closely enough. Nathan, however, is positioned differently. Less emotional bias, more observational focus, greater attention to detail. That combination makes him uniquely aware of the shift, and increasingly isolated in that awareness, because seeing something others don't creates pressure of its own. The point of no return approaches. Every storyline involving psychological decline has a threshold moment, a point where slipping becomes breakdown. Cassius is approaching that threshold, and Nathan senses it. Even if it hasn't fully arrived yet, the trajectory is clear, and that clarity is what makes it urgent, because once that line is crossed, reversal becomes significantly harder. Why this storyline works. This arc succeeds because it builds tension through subtlety rather than spectacle. Gradual behavioral shifts, psychological realism, observational storytelling, rising internal stakes. It engages the audience not with what is happening loudly, but with what is changing quietly. Final thoughts. Cassius slipping early in General Hospital creates a slow-burning tension that defines this storyline's strength. Nothing is fully broken yet, but everything is moving toward breaking, and Nathan's awareness of that shift places him in a uniquely important position. Because in Port Charles, the most dangerous moments are not the ones where things fall apart. They are the ones where they start to, and Cassius has already begun that descent, even if most people haven't realized it yet.